Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. It's morning here. You might be able to hear the cockies. You'll hear them in the background screeching. There's cockies all around in the morning, so that's what's happening in my day. And it's nice and beautiful and sunny here. We've got Hastings having a nap right next to me, and it's quite lovely. So we're going to do an update. I haven't gone into it because, I'm still doing my work, but I couldn't keep away. Things like this bug me and irritate me until I find out, until I get an answer. I think there's a certain anxiety you feel being a genuine researcher because you are afraid. I'm afraid personally that information will be then intentionally hidden. That sounds rather paranoid, but it's you've got to understand you've got to understand that no one's really telling the truth, and there's a very big concerted effort to hide the truth from you. So then everything is blurred, confused, and the solution and the problem is unreachable. And that's what it's been like since COVID, since that disaster. And no one's had an explanation or an answer to anything, and there's no closure to anything. And they're trying to normalize that. It's funny how you see in all the Netflix shows, because Netflix is just control media, but all the documentaries, especially with investigations and so forth, there's no answer, and it's just all confusion, and you wonder if it's a psyop, you wonder if it's real or not, and I think that's the intention. And there's a whole re-narration of these crimes that have taken place that are cold cases. Usually you can tell there was a journalist in Britain that was killed, and I think she was looking into the pedophilia case of like Savile and all that stuff, and she was murdered at her doorstep. And if you watch that documentary, there's like no justice, there's no real solution, and they've kind of blurred the storyline, and you can tell that it was I'm sure, in my own opinion, that it was an intelligence operation, and that she was murdered to be silenced. But there's all these different efforts, and this normalized culture where it's being normalized and accepted that there's no closure, that we're living in a traumatized world where we're constantly re-traumatized, and there's no solution, and that we're all dying, and that we're all we're all dying, or our loved ones are dying, and there's nothing we can do about it. And then you've got the collapses around you of like civil collapses and civil riots and kind of conflicts and little wars, and the complete destabilization of our economy and our political situation. I can see that very clearly. I know you can too, but I just want to voice that. I want to voice that so you feel not so alone, and that you can see it clearly and go, yeah, there is a concerted effort here to hide the truth, but to keep you trapped in this fear-mongering situation. And I think that's connected to how I feel about the efforts, because I definitely know that my channels are watched on social media, on Twitter and on YouTube or X. I have certain accounts, journalists and royal experts that follow me. I have attorneys in Europe that follow me, famous attorneys. And they never actually, correspond with me or communicate with me. I have authors, royal authors follow me. So it's very interesting, and I have seen directly how the royal rota respond, not directly obviously, but respond to my videos and my content. So I'm heavily aware that I'm the only one that is out here speaking the truth and being provocative. Hence why I'm such an outcast. That was just a whole campaign altogether, starting with Paula M. Psyop. So I'm just very aware of trying to get information out there, and for it to be free and in a way untapped or not intervened with or affected, because I'm not too sure how this world operates, to be honest. It's a foreign environment to me. I'm still learning all about this, about how controlled and artificial this world really is. It's sad. It's a sad state of affairs, but I also want to just be honest with you, and yeah, I'm quite paranoid with things, but that's because I've had to be very careful, very careful with what I've done, and what I choose to do. People have asked for my location. People have emailed me, and that's why I have some intermediary now as an agent, just to ensure my safety and to ensure that I'm not always the one that's directly involved in communications, because there's also a lot of psyops going on, a lot of ways to try to control this narrative, even with me, and to cast me off as some sort of conspiracy theorist, or just to completely discredit me and remove me. That's definitely been happening since the Paula M. psyop. So it's been a very interesting time. And I just thought I'd be a bit more transparent with you. There will be comments, I'm sure, that certain moderator accounts will have their input. I had one time somebody say that I was drunk just recently, that I was drunk in one video. And this account I've never heard of or seen before, and they just said that willy-nilly down my comments. And I think it's so crazy to me just how unreal and unnatural this online world is. How no one would ever say that to you if they saw you down the street, if you were talking to somebody at a cafe. I just can't. Sometimes I can't even understand it. Like I've developed a thicker skin about it, but it's so inhumane, and it's so detached from reality, and a lot of it has to do with the culture of no accountability and people hiding behind their keyboards and their computer screens. It's a culture, and it's very toxic. I don't encourage or enable censorship. I don't encourage that Agenda 2030. That's not really why I'm saying all of this, but it is a very toxic environment. But it's built like that. It's built like that. There's no real way around it. And I really don't agree with censorship and don't approve of it. So that's not what I'm supporting. But at the same time, it's just, that's why I like to publish people being toxic and abusive, the ones that try to have this fake performative morality, because it shows the culture that we are subject to here, and how it differentiates. Well, it differs very, very, very much from reality, and that there needs to be a separation. There also needs to be accountability if we're to change this culture and to change this platform. Especially if I have a choice or control over my channel, that's how I'm going to try to change it. So it's never bitter. It's never about drama. I'm the least dramatic person there is with this online, with my content, with the following, with the community. The drama, if anything, if there is drama that you perceive it as drama, it's mostly because I'm emotionally reacting to something and probably triggered by it. But that's about it, really. So that's kind of just some insight. I didn't expect to have this whole conversation, one-sided conversation, but I thought it might be nice to just openly talk about how different this being a content creator is to being in the audience, to being one of you. It's a lot easier for you. You don't have to face what real content creators face, and there's also a separation between true content creators that are heavily censored and fake, controlled opposition content creators that aren't controlled, that have moderators, that are supported and protected, and then fake censorship. That's very different, but they do try to convince you that they're genuine. And there's a lot of really dark deception in this online world. The majority of it, I still haven't found anyone. I still question everyone, of course, but I haven't found many that are, if any, that are genuine at this point still. Maybe a few that there's one that's quite artistic that you guys have suggested to me, a channel, but I can't remember what. It was a woman, I think she's Italian, I think. She's very interesting, but there's not many accounts that are out there, and it's a very artificial, controlled world. And I think that's where I'm at even now with this whole Rome questioning, Holy Roman Empire questioning. We're going to go down the post that I've created. Where is it? That I've created in response so far from my last video about did the Templars or did Rome itself create the Renaissance, or force the Renaissance to occur, and then from that create Protestantism and pretty much the British Empire in a development from Plato's works, from alchemy, from black magic coming into as a new kind of religion, a new kind of faith in the late 15th century. Oh no, mid 15th century, so 1453, when Constantinople fell. There's, at the moment, I tried to I tried to stay away. I did my work, it didn't work, and I came back and I just wanted to ask some questions and find some information and find some referencing. So at the moment, this is just an update as to what I think has occurred. I still have to delve more into it through books and history, but I'll just provide you what I have kind of the understanding that I've gained since asking those questions in my last video. So what I was wondering was if there was some sort of Roman link. I mean, there is always a Roman bloodline link to things, but when alchemy and all of that came out, it was a connection to the ancient faiths, the ancient faith of the ancients, of the original, tribes and people of our land, and that went to Noah and Noah's Ark, and then it moves through to all these different things. But the principles and the elements are the same. You're praying to the sun, you're praying to the planets, and all these kind of different symbols. I've got to remember where I was going with that. And what that did, I think the Holy Roman Empire and even the Medicis and all of this, you've got to realize that this is the same period when the Medicis and all of these Roman papal families came to power. So then you've got to understand that they came to power through the Holy Roman Empire, that it wasn't through the Roman Empire. So that's one thing. And it's not really the ancient Roman faith. It's a revival of the ancient Roman faith. It's a revival of the Egyptian faith, the Babylonian faith, Kabbalism, is it Akkadiism or something like that? It's like, the Noah's Ark, the first kind of faith that there was, and all these different faiths that have passed through eras and dynasties and empires prior to the Holy Roman Empire. And they've connected it all through this kind of like alchemic understanding and Plato's works and Hermeticism, and they've tried to form this new faith that connects to how would you say, a divinely ordained monarchy in a sense, or a divinely ordained empire, through connecting it through the old families and the old bloodlines of the Knights Templar. And the Knights Templar was, around the, was it the 11th or around the 12th century, I think it was. So this was still during the Holy Roman Empire that the Knights Templar were created. I'm pretty sure. Don't rely on that knowledge just yet, but I'm pretty sure it was around that time, and the Pope created that, and it was trying to install its own power. And then that later developed into the Teutonic Knights Templar, which was the Germanic version. So it was like the Holy Roman Empire created their own version of the Knights Templar. That's how it evolutionized. And then it dissipated and it stopped. But the families still carried these origins, and they still carried an importance within the Holy Roman Empire. There was still this connection to older times, to this divine kind of ruling with knights and so forth. And that was how they created these orders, to go with this time of alchemy, of understanding this greater faith that brings it all together, that justifies black magic, that justifies alchemy, and connects Christianity and the cross, the true cross, with these ancient faiths and with alchemy and all these different. It's just a very, I hope you read to understand and to see the esoteric kind of esotericism, to understand that sort of understanding of how that came to be, this kind of like universal, holistic faith that they tried to justify the creation of all faiths and tie them all together. So that was really what was going on. But Rome did fall, from what I understand, and the Knights Templar also dissolved within time. But these families and these bloodlines were still around. And there wasn't a connection until this point to bring that back and to create a divinely ordained empire, which is the Holy Roman Empire. So with this kind of Enlightenment and with this Renaissance, that is what was occurring. At the same time, they were trying to... Medici decided to bring in this knowledge of Neoplatonism, of Plato's works, and create a form of governance of Florence. And it was to create, I'll explain it more in my post, but it was to create a soft power governance. And that was the origins of soft power. And it was to create a more divine, hidden ruling of Florence, rather than this brute force, rather than tyranny. It was to create more of a mystical, enlightened sense of governance. You can think of Catherine the Great in Russia. She governed the exact same way. She governed in the form, well, she attempted to govern in this form of enlightenment and education and empowerment. And it was trying to bring in new thought, individualism. It was really the start of the free will of the people and of soft power, in a way where people could think for themselves. People were bringing in new knowledge, and curiosity was really big, and experimentation was huge, and it was just a period of wonder and delight, so to speak. But it was also a period of alchemy, and I think it was really the questioning of Christianity that brought about this new change of education and governance. So there's a political side to this, and there's just a purely spiritual side to this, and it was brought together by the Medicis. The Medicis governed Florence in a new way. And with that, Medici also was, prior to the governance, he had transcribed all the works of Plato's works when Constantinople fell. And the Holy Roman Empire, I'm sure there was a point where they saw how Medici was governing Florence. The emperor himself wanted to emulate that, who was an advocate for Hermeticism and for this new enlightenment. He wanted to create a new divine, a restructure of a divine empire. So he really wanted to, in essence, he wanted to delete the dual system of the Holy Roman Empire, with the Pope and the Vatican, and the Pope and the Vatican and the sword, which was the Germanic houses. He wanted to kind of centralize that into one key figure and one key empire and emperor, where the emperor himself was a divinely ordained. This was before they changed to monarchies, let's say, even though, he was a king. So, but anyway, that they tried to make it more that they were divinely ordained. And so he wanted to centralize and unify the spirit with the sword. That's the gist of what I'm getting. So he wanted to create a new faith, this faith of alchemy and what formed to be Lutheranism, or Lutheran, and then Protestantism, which was founded by Martin Luther, the asset of Frederick the Wise, who was the House of Saxony. Hence, you've got, there was already the Anglo-Saxon Empire, but anyway, you've got this understanding that I've got this understanding that there was a need to use this revolution, this spiritual and psychological revolution of inquiry, of creativity, of experimentation, of realizing that life is beyond the Pope and the Vatican, and God itself, who makes the rules, and there's no just black and white, but there's shades of grey and shades of colour. Oh, sorry about that. And I think that he wanted to use that to justify this restructure and centralization of the Holy Roman Empire. And that was a new objective. And he saw that in Medici's governance, and he saw that in how it could be formed into a political structure. And that was how the empire then transitioned into a decentralized soft power governance and moved towards the British monarchy and creating the British Empire through Elizabeth, the daughter of Henry VIII, who married the Frederick V of Heidelberg, one of the German houses that had represented the new form, the new religion or faith that was created to govern, militarize, and justify this new version of the Holy Roman Empire, which is Rosicrucianism. So I hope you understand that. I am just going off my ramblings and my thinking, so I apologize if you don't, but I'm going to go through this post to give you an understanding of what I've thought up of already, just as a base. I still am of firm belief that the Holy Roman Empire is separate from the Roman Empire. I think they tried to connect to the old Templars, Knight Templars, to connect back to divinity, to connect back to this Rome, to connect back to Babylon, to connect back to all the history, to justify their ruling, to justify how they rule and how divinely ordained they are. I think I think Medici definitely knew that he could use this newfound knowledge to establish this elitist form of governance and to use that as a source of power and to become higher up and to establish themselves within the Holy Roman Empire. And I think that's exactly what happened. And that's how you have the Medicis. It's not just that they're a merchant family from Rome and they did really well. They became important to the Holy Roman Empire. Very, very important and fundamental to this change, this restructure. The same with the Borgia family, which is, I realize now, the Pope itself at the time, who I'm saying is corrupt and corrupted by the Borgia family, he is a Borgia. So that just kind of, makes a lot more sense. So, being already into black magic, into alchemy, that they would be all for this new change, aligned with the Medici family. And then the what Darren was saying about the Anjou family, being from the ancient, or the Knights Templar family, I think it's Angevin in France. I think they were an important family simply because of their lineage and their history within the Holy Roman Empire, and the emperor wanting to connect his empire and his rule and the restructure to the Knights Templar and to create a new military order of knights for the empire, and to restructure it as so, which now comes through to the orders like the Order of Malta, like the Order of the Golden Fleece, and all the Rosicrucian orders that are through Freemasonry. All right, so let's start, because we're 30 minutes in. I've vomited a lot of words, a lot of thoughts, so let's just try to go with what I've discovered thus far to explain how I'm feeling about the separation between Rome and the Holy Roman Empire, and that is all for a political restructure. So the Medici, especially Cosimo was the one who was in charge of uncovering and translating Plato's works, and he commissioned, I always get this wrong, Ficino, let's say Ficino, and then Ficino had a protege. I just call him Pico. This young kid called Pico, and through anyway, those guys were commissioned under Medici to translate all of Plato's works, which was all the black magic and alchemy and everything that became Rosicrucianism, that became this Renaissance era. So Cosimo Lorenzo the Magnificent promoted a model of governance that elevated philosophy, wisdom, and divine harmony over brute power, soft power over hard power. They deliberately cultivated Florence as a new Athens, where rulers were advised by sages, not just soldiers or clergy. This vision closely resembles the Rosicrucian ideal of an invisible college of wise men working quietly for the reformation of mankind, not through revolution, but through spiritual and intellectual transformation. Thus, Medici formed via mysticism the original form of soft power governance, with the Holy Roman Empire then using it to restructure by their creation of Rosicrucianism and divine monarchy passed through to the British monarchy. The Medici consciously recreated Florence in Plato's image. Consciously recreated Florence in Plato's image after Plato's original time, but with the intention of reviving and applying his ideals. This was not an imitation, but a reinterpretation of Platonic governance, one that would see the model of the Rosicrucian invisible republic, or soft power, because this is now, it's gone from invisible republic to invisible empire, hasn't it? If you think about today. Ruled by the wise, especially awakened and just, which is what you see now, the third eye, that is a pituitary gland or whatever the hell they talk about, the third eye, the opening of the third eye, enlightenment, Illuminati, it's all the same. It's all the same societies and same understanding. Reuchlin, who is German, commissioned by the emperor in Germany, Emperor Maximilian I of Habsburg, continues Pico's work, studying Kabbalah and Hebrew texts. Reuchlin went under Pico in Rome and learnt all about the Kabbalah and all about Hermeticism and all of these, all of the alchemy, all of Plato's works. Historical records confirm that Emperor Maximilian I protected and supported Reuchlin during his conflict with anti-Jewish factions like the Pfefferkorn controversy. Maximilian's patronage allowed Reuchlin to continue his work on Hebrew studies and Christian Kabbalah. Reuchlin's works on Kabbalah and Hebrew mysticism became foundational texts for later Rosicrucians and Hermetic thinkers. It created the intelligentsia. So after that, we've had intelligentsia run through all of these different eras. You've got the Silver Age? The Silver Age in Russia with socialism. I mean, that had a whole intelligentsia of poets and like Chekhov and Bloch and the Moscow Art Theatre. That was a new form of intelligentsia, but it's all been formed through these origins. He served as a bridge between Renaissance Neoplatonism via Ficino and Pico, Jewish mystical traditions, and German reformist humanism. So humanism was what the Germans created from all of these works. His imperial protection mirrors the later Rosicrucian ideal of a hidden elite operating with quiet state support to preserve esoteric wisdom. He was protected by the Holy Roman Empire Emperor Maximilian I, patron of Hermeticism. The Order of the Golden Fleece. Now this is interesting. This is on like a little side note. So the Order of the Golden Fleece was founded in 1430 by Philip the Good, Duke of Burgundy. I think at this time it was almost like all of the families and the strongholds of the Holy Roman Empire were very loyal to the Habsburgs, but they also wanted to display their own predominance, and they wanted to become more important to the empire and more powerful, almost invincible. And the Order of the Golden Fleece was a part of that reasoning. The Order of the Golden Fleece was a concept about Knights Templar. It was about the divinely ordained, what came to be the divinely ordained empire. And it was all by a French aristocracy. So this was a French branch until Philip the Good. After Philip the Good, the Duke of Burgundy, when he passed, there was a new Duke of Burgundy called Charles the Bold, and he wanted to actually become bigger than. He wanted to separate and become bigger than the monarchy, than the French monarchy, and also bigger than the monarchy, and to rival the empire, really. Or he became a threat. He was killed by or executed by the King of France, and his daughter was married to Maximilian I, the Habsburg emperor of our time, that was the advocate and patron of Hermeticism and this new whole imperial restructure. And so he actually, through marriage, received this Order of the Golden Fleece. And now, even now, currently to this day, the Golden Fleece Order is still run by the Bourbons of France, and the Habsburgs. So it's still, they still have put it through. And so the whole concept of the Golden Fleece has become an imperial concept, but not at the beginning, not when it was created. It was created, I think, it was mostly for the French. It was for the Duke of Burgundy to establish its positioning in this change, in this massive change of the empire. It was to show loyalty to the Habsburgs and to the empire itself. But I think it was to establish the Duke of Burgundy and France's, but through his own powerful ruling compared to the King of France himself, wanting to establish himself a lot more up in the food chain. I think that's how I see it anyway. So Maximilian I of Habsburg married Mary of Burgundy, as I said, Philip's granddaughter, in 1477, and through this marriage he acquired control of Burgundy's territories. He inherited the role of Grand Master of the Order of the Golden Fleece. Chivalric orders of the Golden Fleece preserve the idea of a divinely ordained knightly elite, which is the creation of Rosicrucianism, and because it ties in with the Emperor Maximilian I's efforts to blend Hermeticism and all of this new knowledge into a new faith and into a new political structure. So he receives the Golden Fleece, the Order of the Golden Fleece, and then he uses that to then create, well, I'm not sure if he per se uses that because it's quite some time where Rosicrucianism is created, but it carries on to develop Rosicrucianism, divinely ordained knightly elite, through all these societies, these secret elitist societies and initiations that we now see in the City of London. And also, I'm guessing the Jesuits have a lot to do with it, but, you know, they were around at the same time too, but I'm sure they've gone through their own transition. So the Golden Fleece refers to the mythical object from the legend of Jason and the Argonauts, but it also had Christian undertones, possibly linked to the true cross, relics, and the idea of a divinely ordained monarchy. So while not the founder of this order, Maximilian was the first Holy Roman Emperor to rule the order. He framed himself as a divine chivalric ruler in line with mythical ideals. So he became the divine through the Golden Fleece and through this new Hermeticism train of thought. He sponsored court intellectuals and artists influenced by Neoplatonism, astrology, alchemy, and Hermetic thought, such as Conrad Celtis, Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa, which I've discussed earlier, who would become central to Renaissance magic and the creation of Rosicrucianism, and Reuchlin. Maximilian commissioned mystical heroic texts, like the Weiskönig and Theurdank, don't know, which mythologize his rule in quasi-mystical chivalric terms. Frederick the Wise, Elector of Saxony, collects relics and sponsors Martin Luther, the asset, though more grounded in theology, he shares mystical reformist ideals. Paracelsus fuses alchemy, medicine, and mysticism, laying groundwork for later Rosicrucian science. This was part of a broader cultural effort to blend imperial politics with esoteric symbolism, the restructure of soft power governance by divine monarchy, which laid the groundwork for Rosicrucian and early modern esoteric imperial ideology, which is what we see today. The Rosicrucian manifestos, early 1600s, claimed a secret order of Christian mystics promoting universal reform, aka New World Imperial Order, or New World Order, spiritual, scientific, and political. These texts reimagine the Golden Fleece ethos through alchemical and esoteric lenses. Instead of serving the Pope and Empire, the new knighthood served truth, science, and divine mystery. See the change, the transition? The invisible college idea fed directly into the Enlightenment, Freemasonry, and even British imperial ideology, the science and morality as the new sacred duties. Faux morality, more like. The Teutonic Knights had long operated as a militant Catholic order in the Baltic. After the Reformation, they fragmented and lost purpose. The Templar mythos, suppressed by the Church, was revived in Masonic law and merged with Rosicrucian ideals. The Rosicrucians saw the Golden Fleece as a symbolic heir to the Templar ideal, especially in how it was used to mask deeper spiritual and alchemical meanings. By the hand of the Holy Roman Empire, a shift in sacred spiritual authority occurred, for which the dual imperial system became one, from papal imperial chivalry, the Golden Fleece, to Protestant mystic knighthood, Rosicrucians, to scientific secretive elites, Freemasons, Enlightenment thinkers, and ultimately to the British imperial moral mission, Victorian era global missions, rationalism. Now here's a series of references that give you proof of or give you, well, let's not say proof, but cross-referencing to this information. So you have Francis Yates' book, The Rosicrucian Enlightenment, 1972. They discussed how Renaissance elites used esoteric knowledge as part of cultural and spiritual renewal agendas, often tied to political power. Although more focused on Rosicrucianism, Yates provides background on the cultural and intellectual context in which figures like Maximilian fostered esoteric traditions to support political aims. Peter Biertenholz's History of Renaissance Philosophy noted that the patrons like Maximilian I and the Burgundians, or the Dukes of Burgundy, supported humanists engaged in esoteric studies to legitimize and renew their rule. Because I know that for a fact that, well, I've read that the Duke of Burgundy initially commissioned, initially commissioned Reuchlin to translate the works of Plato, but that could also have been under the Holy Roman Empire and the emperor himself, for which then he was then under the protection of the emperor. Craig Harbison, The Art of the Northern Renaissance, explores how the Burgundian court patronized humanist art, thought to promote a vision of Christian renewal tied to dynasty and chivalry. Scott Hendrick's Maximilian and the Age of Renaissance in 2013 explored Maximilian's role as a Renaissance ruler who used art, chivalric orders like the Order of the Golden Fleece, and court culture to project divine authority and legitimize his imperial ambitions. Hendricks discusses how Maximilian embraced mysticism and chivalry as tools of political symbolism. Martin Wonke, Maximilian I and the Visual Politics of the Holy Roman Empire, various essays and catalogues. He analysed the extensive use of symbolic imagery, knightly orders and court ceremonies orchestrated by Maximilian to cultivate an image of sacred rulership. Focuses on how mysticism and chivalry were interwoven into political propaganda. Sorry, trying to go too fast. Thomas Brady Jr., German Histories in the Age of Reformations, 1400 to 1650, in 2009. Includes chapters of Maximilian's political theology and his use of chivalric ideals and religious symbolism to consolidate power. Shows how Maximilian's policies were a blend of politics and religious mysticism. Stolberg-Rillinger, The Holy Roman Empire, A Short History, in 2018, discusses Maximilian's role in shaping the imperial identity, including his chivalric orders and the revival of imperial mysticism. Maximilian's own writings and court documents, including his autobiographical work, Weisskönig, that's how you say it, Weisskönig, mixed historical narrative with mythic and chivalric symbolism. The Order of the Golden Fleece, statutes, and ceremonies commissioned under Maximilian embody the divine mission of knightly virtue. Artistic commissions such as the Triumphal Arch, designed by Albert Dürer, served as political propaganda steeped in symbolic mystical imagery. You can see here this development, this evolution of what happened with Medici and what Medici did to form Hermeticism and to then get to Freemasonry down the bottom. So you go through Medici and then Ficino translating Plato's works to create Hermeticism and Neoplatonism. And then you've got his protege Pico della Mirandola, the Kabbalah, Universalism, etc. I haven't gone to the full picture here, but you can see just in general a bigger picture of how this is formed. It then creates spiritual humanism and anti-clerical reformism in Germany through Reuchlin. And then the Rosicrucian manifestos happen in the 17th century. And through Rosicrucianism, the Invisible College and Freemasonry and all the societies come together. And that happens when the Rosicrucian king, who really, the representative and the one who was meant to create this new order and to bring it almost like a prophecy, and the righteous heir of the righteous German imperial heir of Rosicrucianism, Frederick V, marries the British Elizabeth I. When the 30 Years' War ensues, because there is a revolt against him being crowned, which is seen as a direct threat, whether or not that's by design or natural, whatever, right? The 30 Years' War then creates this, it transitions this Rosicrucianism, this new military order and Protestantism union with the British, with the French, with the Germans. They're trying to create this reform and restructure of the empire through Rosicrucianism. When that occurs, and there's the 30 Years' War, when that happens, Rosicrucianism becomes hidden from the eye because they can't pursue it, and it can't, the reformation can't happen necessarily directly, overtly as it was, because there's this huge conflict going on against it, and there's a war happening. So when that happens, secret societies form, and that was when Freemasonry formed, and Rosicrucianism became hidden to the eye through these secret societies. And it became a military order, a knightly order that was connected to the Golden Fleece, the Golden Cross, which is Rosicrucianism, and justified through the emperor and the empire of Maximilian I. That all becomes secret, but it also becomes an order, a developing order of what will be the restructure of the Holy Roman Empire. And so it still develops just hidden from sight. And that was how this new invisible college was formed. So it was because of that, what happened there and what occurred with the 30-Year War, as to how the invisible college was formed, and what we see today with the structure of the empire, the Holy Roman Empire through the British Empire. What we see today is very much this invisible college and what occurred in the 17th century with the marriage and the crowning of the marriage of Frederick V of Heidelberg to Elizabeth, Henry VIII's daughter, and then the crowning, his crowning of becoming the King of Bohemia. And they formed these orders and these societies. They went into exile. I think he went to exile at The Hague. And they used their daughter through the marriage of her to the Hanoverian line to create the reformation or the restructure of the Holy Roman Empire, where the Hanoverian line then came through to the British monarchy. Henry VIII had already set up Protestantism through Martin Luther, the asset that was justified through Martin Luther. His daughter was then married off as a Protestant queen to Frederick V, and they created a daughter who then married into the Hanoverian line. And it was set from then on. They created an act, a law, whereby all of her heirs will be the monarchy, will be the divinely ordained monarchy to rule Britain. And from then on, the restructure was set. And so by 1806, around the time that Victoria will come to be, or is she? No, not yet. I think her father's still alive at this point. I think 1809 he dies. When that all happens, when the empire transitions over to Britain, and not just fully, it's not just a fully centralized empire. I don't think it is. I still have yet to research that, but there was also the Austrian Empire. So the emperor dissolved the Holy Roman Empire, and he became Emperor of Austria, or I think that might be the Austro-Hungarian Empire. I have to look into it. But all of that occurred. But this was, centuries of planning right from the 15th century. So it's really, really interesting. This is the church, the Medici church here. In Florence. And that's all I've got. So that's the understanding that I've got so far. I did not mean for it to be bloody 56 minutes. I am so sorry. You can hopefully skip through a lot of it and or maybe enjoy all of it with a nice coffee or whatever. I just hope you enjoy it. I'm sorry. There's just, it's really interesting, this stuff. But from this, I gather that the Holy Roman Empire wanted to, through this kind of divine faith and new divine rule, they wanted to connect back to the importance of the Knights Templar through a knightly orders and chivalric orders, and they created a new political structure from it. I still don't see how the Roman Empire is connected to the Holy Roman Empire other than symbolism and meaning and faith and esotericism. So that's the gist of things, of how things are running so far. I still have yet to delve more into it, and I've still got a lot more to do with my own stuff, so we'll see how that goes. But I thought I'd give you some insight and an explanation as to what I've gathered so far. Thanks so much, guys. Have a wonderful day or a wonderful evening, and I'll speak to you soon.